Hello, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of the Chromebook Classroom. Today, we are back. She is a legend in Edmonton Catholic Schools, amazing artist, amazing author, amazing teacher. With us today, my friend Brandy. Good morning, Brandy. How are you?
Good morning, Trish. How are you doing?
I'm so excited for this. You are one of the most creative people I've ever met, and I'm so happy you're here today to share with us. But just for any of our friends watching who don't know who you are yet, why don't you go ahead and introduce yourself and tell us what you do?
Okay, so I am the English Language Arts Consultant for K-6, and I support a team of schools. And so I'm back here to talk about some vocabulary.
Okay, I love this. When you brought up this idea, I was like, okay, vocabulary, like, oh yeah, it can seem like such a small thing, but it's actually a big thing. Because if you think about it, like vocabulary is part of absolutely every subject area. Every day we're learning new vocabulary. Why is it so important, I guess, to focus on vocabulary and not just like reading as a whole or writing as a whole? Like, why do we want to narrow in and look at vocabulary?
And just like you said, it is part of almost all the subjects. But really what it is that we need to build prior knowledge. And we're finding that, just as students are coming back to school full time now and getting back into the swing of things, that we have kind of lost a bit of our background knowledge and maybe not being exposed to so many books and all these different things that we used to. And when we have prior knowledge, we're able to unpack our reading much better and we're able to write much better. And so vocabulary is a very key piece, and we call it one of our 5 pillars in ELA. And so you can see up on the screen here that this is part of SharePoint. We have a section devoted to vocabulary, in fact. And so today we're going to unpack this with a really fun, neat strategy.
Okay, I love this. And you're right. Like anybody watching, we'll have linked below this video exactly where you can find just this mecca resource of everything you need to teach English language arts. But the strategy you're going to show us today is called List Group Label. And you have put it in one of those easy, free Google tools that anybody can use. So show us what you got, because this was just, I looked at this, I'm like, this is brilliant and this is simple and anybody could do this.
Okay, yeah, thank you, Trish. Okay, so for most teachers out there, I know you are familiar with Epic. We are blessed to still have free access to Epic, and this has been a huge addition to our classrooms, whether in person or online. So the best thing in terms of this strategy, I would say, is to hook it to one of your cross-curricular outcomes or subject areas. So I, in fact, picked, as you can see, bugs, and bugs is something, or insects and small crawling and flying animals is something that we would do in grade 2. We'd also do life cycles in grade 3 science. So anyway, I picked butterfly, the cycle of a butterfly for our example. And I'm just going to be showing you the cover because for list group label, that's how we're going to start, is just to get students prior knowledge of what they know based just on the cover. And of course, not only background knowledge, but this builds critical literacy and critical thinking skills too. Okay, so let's see how this goes. I'm going to just go over to my Jamboard. So here's my Jamboard. Now note that I have pre-populated the Jamboard because just for sake of time. But what you would do with the students is to look at the picture, the cycle of the butterfly, and say, hey, what do we know about the butterfly? What are some keywords or things that we know? And so, of course, you are going to lead this process. And like everything, you always show the kids first. You can start actually brainstorming words first if they're not sure, and then let the students in on that. So you can see I have used the Post-it note feature, and I have just brainstormed some words based on what I think kids would say about the butterfly. And so we see that we have an assortment. So this is our list stage. So we're going to list. So
and that first part, you're saying this would be blank. I would have the cover, the kids would be generating these words. Maybe we're doing it as a whole class at the beginning, but eventually kids could do this maybe on their own if we perhaps put this Jamboard inside a Google Classroom. We could assign it to the students. Yeah, cool.
Not only alone, but even in pairs and in groups too.
Okay. Love that.
And we haven't actually said this, but obviously there's the old school method would be, chart paper and Post-it note. If we have to on the fly. You never know where you are in a school. If you're moving maybe in the library, the Learning Commons, and you need access and don't have tech. So we can definitely do old school. So this is the list stage. Okay, so I'm going to go on to the second Jamboard slide here. And so I, again, have pre-populated this a bit. But what you'd be doing is starting to show students that you can actually start thinking, well, that word, black, see colors. Okay, I'm going to see if colors might work. So I'm going to start, okay, so those are colors. And then a student might say, okay, chrysalis, that's like a life cycle thing. And caterpillar, egg.
Right.
And I think that might be it. And then you might think to yourself, well, what else do we have here? Well, we have thorax, which when we've taught grade 2, we know that's part of the body. So we have the thorax, we have the head. We didn't actually say body, but that might have come up. And then wings. So these are all parts of the butterfly, I think.
Yeah.
And then, oh, antenna. There we go. But then, so then we're going to try to, oh, we've got some outliers. So fly, I think I'll group with migrate for now. And that seems to make sense because migration is, of course, traveling quite far. So you would need to fly. You could not take a train. Well, maybe they do. Anyway, needless to say, you're sort of, and again, you're leading this process very heavily in the first few times that you introduce this strategy. Of course, depending on your kids, you might need to lead it more often. If you have older students or students are kind of jumping in with it, then you don't need to be continuing so much with owning the process. They can jump in.
Okay.
So then you kind of go through, and so that was, we grouped them. And now we're going to label them. So note that I wouldn't have pre-labeled them. I just did this for sake of time. So you'd say to the students, oh, what do these all have in common? They'll say, well, they're colors. And I'll say, okay, colors of the butterfly. So there we go. That's what we're going to label that one. Thorax, head, wings, and antennae. That would be parts of the butterfly.
Right.
And then, oh, what are these here? Well, those look to be life cycle ones. So we are going to use this title for that. We're going to label it that. And then movement of the butterfly. We are going to put that over here. So now we have all these sort of random vocabulary words that were generated in a list have suddenly been grouped based on conversation and like association and trying to figure it out, which is a huge part of critical literacy, to kind of say why you think words go together, because they're not preset, right? You really have to put those connections together. And then finally we label them and kind of set them into where we think that we can understand them best.
This is amazing, because I think so much we focus on vocabulary. It's like, can you physically read the word, or do you maybe know the definition? Like for this, I'm looking at it and it's that idea of making meaning. It's not just that I can read the print or I can define what that is. Being able to make those connections, that's huge when you think of like students, long-term memory storage and being able to fully understand. And I love that idea of them coming up with those categories when you're sorting these together.
Yeah, and I was just actually thinking here, looking at it, that also, I mean, this is sort of leads in nicely into sort of a writing piece or a journaling piece or something, where now you have those categories, either sections or paragraphs. So students are way more organized all of a sudden too. So this is really something that can be used across, I mean, K to 12, right?
Yeah.
In any subject area, just introducing new vocabulary, and then just getting them to really think about it, because then now you can imagine you'd be really ready to get into studying the butterfly.
Absolutely.
You've really unpacked quite a bit of things. And
well,
it gets everyone warmed up, right?
And I love it because looking at this Jamboard, I know you're like, okay, we can do an old school way, but here's where my tech mind is buzzing right now, looking at this, buzzing, we're doing bugs. But anyways, Here's what I think. Number one, read write for Chrome 100% will work in this environment. So if you do have some students that need a bit of assistance, perhaps with the production of the print, whether that is being able to do some of the speech to text or text to speech, fully will function in here, especially when they're doing on their own. But we can also do things for, like, I'm thinking our English language learners, our emergent learners, because we have the image option here. Because I can even start to pull the image of, well, what is a thorax? Because if I go to that image button and I click it and I search thorax, I can still start to associate images with each one of these words, especially for those learners that maybe are like, wait, what? Okay, Brandy knew what thorax was, but maybe Trisha's not so sure. And we've grouped it here and I want to know more. And just for students to be able to click that add image, go to that Google search for a thorax of a butterfly and be able to put that image right on here. We can layer on so much other support for our students, but more ways to make meaning and remember it.
Very much. I love that. It's so true. I mean, having that image button and having the kids start to unpack what it looks like, and it does really support all learners, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Support one learner always supports other learners.
I love this. Well, and I love this strategy. I love that this could be used from kindergarten to grade 12. It doesn't matter if we're doing, Bio 20 or we're doing our creepy crawling flying animals in grade 2. I think this is fantastic. Anybody watching this video, we have linked below. You'll get Brandy's sample Jamboard. So if you want to be able to try this, do this with your students, it could not be more easy. And as well, we will have linked to all of her amazing resources and the rest of her team. Their SharePoint site will be below this as well. So Brandy, this was awesome. Thank you so much for coming and sharing with us today. I can't wait to see what your creative mind comes up with next.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Trish, for this time to demonstrate this really neat strategy for all our teachers.
Thanks for watching, everybody. See you next time.
Thank you. See you.